Alright, get ready everyone. This is going to be a long one. I also included chapters, so you can skip any groups you don't care about. With that being said, let's review how the Champions League has played out so far. We start off with Group A, but hold your horses because even before the first match had started, drama was already brewing at the New Hollywood FC. All the way back in 2022, United youngster Mason Greenwood had been arrested for domestic abuse against his partner. He was internally suspended by the Red Devils as his case proceeded, but in 2023, his charges were dropped, which, FYI, is not the same as being acquitted. United then launched into an insane plan to bring him back, only to scrap all those plans when faced with the online backlash. Greenwood was subsequently loaned to Getafe. Then this season, after United lost to Arsenal, Ten Hag in a press conference addressed the absences of Scott McTominay and Jadon Sancho, making a brief reference to being unhappy with Sancho's effort in training. This prompted Sancho to make an Instagram post claiming he was putting 100% in training and essentially called Ten Hag a liar. The ensuing back and forth was peak comedy for every neutral supporter. 1 minute articles came out that players were demanding Sancho apologize to the manager. The next sources claimed they were unhappy with Ten Hag. Amidst all of this was Anthony being arrested for domestic abuse for allegedly punching his ex-girlfriend. He was given extended leave, but this didn't stop the club from bringing him back less than a month later, while the investigation is still ongoing. Pulling this nonsense right after the Greenwood situation makes it 10 times worse. Anyways, the first match of Group A featured Bayern facing off against Man United. Leroy Sané would open the scoring with a shot that went straight through Onana. Gnabry doubles the lead just a few minutes later with a low finish. Into the second half, Højlund pulls one back for United and the Red Devils are back into Harry Kane gives Bayern another 2-goal lead as the Bavarians run riot, but late into the match, Casemiro decides to stop using only 5% of his power and gives United hope. Those hopes are quickly squashed as Tell scores another to make it 4-2, right before Casemiro scores again. An awful start for Manchester United as Bayern take a 4-3 win, while Galatasaray scratch a 2-2 draw with Copenhagen. In the second match, Bayern faced off against Copenhagen, while Galatasaray visited United. Copenhagen started off by giving Bayern a good scare, but goals from Musiala and Tell ensured a 2-1 win for the Germans. Then there was the match at Old Trafford. The Red Devils seemed to be off to a fantastic start as Højlund gave them the lead in the 17th minute, but it only took Galatasaray a few minutes to equalize. Into the second half, and Højlund once again shows up for the Mancunians, but once again, they bottle the lead within minutes. But don't worry. United have paid good money for their keeper, Andre Onana. United could easily regain control of the game with Onana's fantastic distribution, and it was only a matter of time before... Trouble here. You have got to be kidding me. With Onana once again being incompetent, Icardi would slot home the penalty. That didn't matter much because late into the match, Icardi would take advantage of the Mr. Bean of keepers and finish United off as Old Trafford falls completely silent. Manchester United fall to the bottom of the group by match day 2. Match day 3 now, and while Bayern comfortably took down Galatasaray, United needed a response against Copenhagen. Both sides went at each other's throats, but in a script that not even Shakespeare could write, it would be Harry Maguire to score the first goal for the Red Devils. Maguire's redemption arc is complete, and United stroll to a perfect victory.
Could go anywhere!
It's okay though, because despite playing like Kepa in 2019, Onana comes up with the heroics. The universe completely flips as Maguire and Onana become United's unlikely heroes and keep their Champions League hopes alive. In the fourth match of Group A, Copenhagen were faced with the return leg against Manchester United at home. And it would be the visitors who quickly took control of the game, with Rasmus Højlund scoring 2 early goals against his former club. With that fantastic start, United would go on to
try to go through Rashford.
Well now. Being encouraged by their opponents going down to 10 men, Copenhagen kept the pressure up and their efforts were rewarded when Elyounoussi scored in the 45th minute. Deep into stoppage time, the home side were awarded a penalty from a Maguire handball. Gonçalves slots it home and Copenhagen are level. Despite losing their lead just before halftime, the Red Devils weren't going to give up so easily. While dueling with Maguire, Larager concedes a similar handball penalty, which is scored by Bruno Fernandes. So now that they've restored their lead, United would go on to... While Bayern do just enough to edge past Galatasaray and confirm qualification for the knockout round, United throw away a 2-0 lead and lose 4-3 to Copenhagen. And how ironic it was that the winning goal against United was scored by a player named Rooney. With United's Champions League campaign now in real danger, the last spot was up for grabs between all three teams. As unlikely as it seemed, if Copenhagen won against Bayern, United needed to win against Galatasaray. On the flip side, even if Copenhagen drew or lost to the Bavarians, United needed to avoid losing to Galatasaray. Failing to do so would spell elimination for the Red Devils. Going into matchday 5 now, and Manchester United paid a visit to Galatasaray. Once again, they took full control of the game early on, as Garnacho and Fernandes gave the visitors an early 2-0 lead. Having learned from their previous mistakes, this time, Man United would... Oh my gosh, not again. Determined not to repeat their catastrophic choking from last time, United bounced back through Scott McTominay. Who else but the former striker to be the Red Devils' hero, and his goal would secure all 3 points. Hakim Ziyech claims a hat-trick of goal contributions, assisted by Onana's hat-trick of mistakes, as United bottle a 2-0 lead for the second match in a row, a goalkeeper helping his ex-Ajax teammate. How wholesome. But remember, as crazy as this game was, it wasn't the only match in Group A. Bayern would also host Copenhagen, and against all odds, the Danish side held Bayern to a 0-0 draw. There was a penalty that was revoked late into the match. We'll come back to that point later in the video. But Copenhagen keep their Champions League hopes alive. It means even more than that, as the Danish underdogs ended Bayern's record of 17 consecutive group stage wins. With that out of the way, here's the situation after matchday 5. All teams have only one match left, with Galatasaray facing Copenhagen and Manchester United facing already qualified Bayern Munich. Last place Man United need to win against Bayern Munich and need Galatasaray versus Copenhagen to end in a draw. If either team wins, or if they can't grab all 3 points against the Bavarians, United will be eliminated. Galatasaray need a win to advance, while Copenhagen just need to draw. Going into the final match day, United face Bayern at Old Trafford. This is a must-win game for United, and they also need other results to go their way. You wouldn't be able to tell, as the United attackers were aiming for the moon in the entire first half. It didn't help that Bayern also looked quite dangerous at times, even though the game remained scoreless thus far. Even worse news came when Copenhagen took the lead in the other game, so United had to win to keep their hopes alive.
Coman, big shot!
With nothing else coming from United's deadweight forwards, the game would end 1-0 to Bayern, as United's players were booed off the pitch by their own fans. Having won against Galatasaray, Copenhagen secured the runner-up spot to Bayern. Both teams advanced to the knockouts, while Copenhagen qualified for the Europa League, and Manchester United finished dead last. The first match saw Arsenal face PSV, and it wasn't even close. Meanwhile, Sevilla are held to a draw by Lens. The second match day came, and Arsenal are facing Lens. With only 14 minutes gone, Gabriel Jesus puts Arsenal ahead, but Lens, having experienced a horrible season up to that point, weren't going down without a fight. Thomason responds not long after, and in the second half, Wahi creates another moment of Champions League magic. Lens stunned Arsenal with a 2-1 comeback win at home, while PSV and Sevilla hold each other to a 2-2 draw after lots of late drama. Matchday 3 started with Arsenal squaring up against Sevilla, and despite Sevilla putting up a good fight, the Gunners would secure a 2-1 win away from home. In the other match, Lens and PSV played out a 1-1 draw, with both sides being relatively equal in possession and number of shots. Side note, I know it seems like I'm skimming over Group B in comparison to Group A, but this is going to be a theme with groups where nothing notable happens. I expected Arsenal to dominate in this group, and aside from that one fixture against Lens, that's exactly what they've done. Into matchday 4 now, and we open with Arsenal hosting Sevilla. The Gunners would also coast to an easy 2-0 victory to continue their path to the knockouts. Meanwhile, in PSV versus Lens, Luuk de Jong gave the home side the lead, as both sides went at each other's throats. Lens managed to outshoot the Dutch side, but PSV managed to hold on to their narrow lead and snatch all 3 points. Arsenal are still in control of the group, while second place is being fought over by Lens and PSV. Sevilla could technically take second place too, but being winless so far has made them pretty unconvincing. As we head into matchday 5, all clubs have everything to play for. Arsenal want to retain their position at the top, while Lens, PSV, and Sevilla fight over the last knockout spot. The Gunners hosted Lens in North London, and despite being first place in the group, they showed no mercy towards the visitors. Sevilla looked to make a comeback in their campaign against PSV. They did exactly that, as Ramos gave the Spanish club an early lead. Into the second half, and Nasiri doubles the lead, with Sevilla now cruising to victory. They could... Taking inspiration from Man United, Sevilla bottle a 2-0 lead in spectacular fashion as PSV take all 3 points. With these results, Arsenal and PSV secure their spot in the knockouts, while Lens and Sevilla can only battle for Europa League qualification. With this in mind, matchday 6 came. Arsenal and PSV battle out a 1-1 draw, while in the other match, Lens and Sevilla battle for the Europa League. With 60 minutes gone, Lens get a penalty which is scored by Frankowski, and it looks like the Europa League's defending champions will be out of Europe altogether. In the 75th minute, Sevilla are awarded a penalty. Ramos' attempt is saved, but VAR deemed that the goalkeeper was off his line and it's retaken. This time Ramos slots home a Panenka and Sevilla are level, but their hearts would be ultimately broken as Lens find a late winner to secure Europa League qualification, while Sevilla, the defending Europa League champions, don't even get a chance to defend their title. Don't underestimate the power of financial mismanagement. Matchday 1 featured Real Madrid vs Union Berlin. Los Blancos dominated the match as expected, throwing jab after jab after jab. What wasn't expected is how admirably Union Berlin defended, holding Real at bay for most of the match. It would take a last-minute Jude Bellingham goal for the hosts to take all 3 points. Despite the headlines being all about the young Englishman, I feel for Union Berlin. Being shot at 32 times by Real Madrid in the Champions League, and only losing 1-0 is an achievement to be proud of. Meanwhile in Portugal, Braga hosted Napoli and, strangely enough, the defending Serie A champions seemed to struggle against the Portuguese underdogs. Di Lorenzo gave Napoli the lead only for Burma to equalize. It would take a late own goal for the Italian side to take the win. Another match where the scoreline doesn't paint the full picture. Both sides were relatively equal in number of shots and Braga even had more possession. That's not the end of the story though. Napoli weren't about to let Man United take all the headlines about club drama, as the club's official TikTok page posted a video mocking star striker Victor Osimhen. The video was deleted later, and there were even rumors about Osimhen looking for a transfer, although these rumors were quickly denied by the player. In matchday 2, we saw a top-of-the-group clash between Napoli and Real Madrid. Ostergaard opened the scoring for the home crowd only for Vinicius Jr. to equalize. Jude Bellingham would give the visitors the lead only minutes later. Into the second half, a Nacho handball gives Napoli a penalty. Zielinski sends it in and the two sides are level again. Late into the match, Valverde unleashes a shot which becomes an unfortunate own goal off Alex Meret. Napoli couldn't come back from that one and Real Madrid take all 3 points at the Maradona. While this was happening, Braga condemned Union Berlin to another loss, despite a good effort. The Germans lost a 2-goal lead and continued their losing streak. Matchday 3 arrives, and despite being outshot, Real Madrid take a relatively simple 2-1 win over Braga. For this week though, it was Union Berlin versus Napoli that took all the headlines. The hosts managed to outshoot the visitors 11-6, but in the end, fell to a 1-0 defeat. What happened after is a story I feel like doesn't get talked about enough, because this was Union Berlin's 9th loss in a row. And the players had to speak to the club's ultras after the match, no doubt expecting to be heckled and criticized, especially bearing in mind that not even 2 months ago, Lyon ultras tore into their own players for horrible form in the league, in what became a viral video. But despite the players' expectations, the opposite happened. The fans were filmed giving the team a pep talk, with one even shouting, "You lost to Napoli, who only had 1 shot on target. Come on. We are living the dream in the Champions League." I feel like this moment doesn't get talked about enough because, in a way, it represents why we love football beyond it just being a sport about results. Some fans have resorted to picking clubs just for the trophies they win or the players they sign, but for many clubs in the Champions League, they're just happy to be there. Union Berlin embodies this, as just 4 years ago, this club was in the 2nd Bundesliga and had to climb the ranks through European competitions before reaching the Champions League. The fans know full well they probably have no chance of winning the competition, but they don't care, because to have gotten there in the first place means everything to them. In matchday 4, Real Madrid cruised to an easy 3-0 victory over Braga at the Bernabeu, while Napoli hosted Union Berlin. The home side took the lead near the end of the first half, but going into the second half, Union Berlin managed to equalize. Despite only getting 27% possession, Union Berlin held on as the Germans finally ended their losing streak. Matchday 5 gave us Braga versus Union Berlin. The German side are still winless in the group stage as they're held to another 1-1 draw. In the other side, Real Madrid faced Napoli. The Partenopei had a fantastic start as Simeone's early strike took the lead. His father would be proud. But it took only 2 minutes for Rodrigo to equalize for Los Blancos. In the 22nd minute, it was that man again, Jude Bellingham, to take the lead for Real Madrid. As soon as the second half began, it was Napoli's turn to draw level. This would ultimately mean very little as Paz and Joselu finished Napoli off. Real Madrid go on to win 4-2 and secure their position in first place. Now for matchday 6. Union Berlin were already eliminated, while Napoli and Braga contend for second place. Napoli take a hard-fought 2-0 win despite having less than half the shots as the Portuguese visitors. Meanwhile, Real Madrid paid a visit to Berlin. The Spanish Giants look to secure their perfect win record in the group, while Union Berlin are only playing for pride. It didn't look good for the hosts as Madrid are awarded a penalty. However, Modric's effort is saved. Berlin storm down the other end and score right off the bat. Into the second half, Joselu equalizes for Real, and just 11 minutes later, he scores again to take the lead. Union Berlin managed a late response as Alex Krul equalizes for the hosts, but the underdogs would ultimately experience heartbreak as Cjbeards scores a late winner. Real Madrid wins 6 out of 6 matches, while Union Berlin bow out of Europe, having put up a fantastic fight in this group. Meanwhile, Napoli advance into the knockouts as the runners-up, while Braga are relegated to the Europa League. On to Group D, and I gotta ask first. Why Benfica? Why you gotta do this to me? In matchday 1, we witnessed Inter Milan salvage a 1-1 draw after a late Lautaro Martinez equalizer. Meanwhile, Benfica shockingly lose to Salzburg 2-0 at home. Salzburg go on to lose 2-0 at home to Real Sociedad in matchday 2, and Benfica's shaky start to the group stage continues as Marcus Thuram condemns the Portuguese champions to a 1-0 loss. Matchday 3 arrives and we start off with Inter facing Salzburg. The Nerazzurri would emerge with a 2-1 victory as Benfica suffer a third loss in a row to Real Sociedad. I know I'm not really doing this group justice with how quickly I'm skipping over it, but look. A, this is not at all a high-scoring group, and B, I've already hit my 7th page in the script, written over 3,000 words, and we're not even at the group of death yet, so yeah. In matchday 4, we saw Real Sociedad demolish Benfica with a comfortable 3-1 win, with the world shocked at just how badly Benfica are doing this season. Real Sociedad were leading 3-0 by halftime, and it could have been 4 if they knew how to score penalties. Meanwhile, Inter Milan ended the matchday by narrowly defeating Salzburg through a penalty. Matchday 5 brought us a 0-0 draw between Real Sociedad and Salzburg, while Benfica hosted Inter Milan. Having already been eliminated at this point, Benfica were just trying to salvage any positive result to reach the Europa League, and the Portuguese started by silencing their critics as João Mario scored a hat-trick, giving Benfica the perfect start. But hold your horses, Benfica fans, because it seems like after the first half, the entire team forgot how to defend. Benfica bottled a 3-0 lead to Inter's backup team in spectacular fashion as both Sociedad and Inter confirmed their qualification. Heading into the last matchday, Real Sociedad and Inter Milan will contend for first place in the group, while Salzburg and Benfica will fight over the Europa League spot. In matchday 6, Inter and Real Sociedad played out a dull 0-0 draw as Real Sociedad secure first place and Inter advance as runners-up. In the other match, Benfica needed to win by 2 goals to overtake Salzburg for the Europa League spot. Di Maria started off the visitors brilliantly as he scored using a corner kick. Rafa Silva doubled the lead as Benfica gained the advantage they needed. In the second half, Salzburg badly damaged Benfica's hopes as Lucas Susic pulls one back, but Cabral scores a late winner and Benfica hold on to their 3-1 lead. With this result, Benfica qualify for the Europa League while Salzburg crash out of Europe. Alright, Salzburg eliminated. I guess Red Bull doesn't give you wings. Group E started off with Lazio versus Atletico Madrid. Simeone's men took the lead early on, and in classic Atleti fashion, they decided to hold the fort for almost the entire rest of the match. Lazio bombarded forward repeatedly but couldn't make anything happen. Finally, in a gamble to salvage a point, Sarri sent goalkeeper Ivan Provedel forward for the final corner and, against all odds, the man in the gloves scores a late equalizer for Lazio. I'm not completely sure why Sarri did that. Sure, sending the keeper to join the attack is a tactic seen when a team just needs one more goal, but that's usually in must-win games or must-not-lose situations and not, in the very first group stage match. But whatever, it ended up paying off and both sides grabbed 1 point from the opening fixture. Meanwhile, Feyenoord clinched a 2-0 win against 9-man Celtic to take the lead in Group E. Match day 2 came and we started off with Atletico versus Feyenoord. The hosts started off terribly, giving Feyenoord the lead through a Hermoso own goal. Just 5 minutes later though, Alvaro Morata hit the target, for once, and equalizes for the Colchoneros. Hanko retook the lead for Feyenoord again, but just before the end of the half, Atletico equalized again through Griezmann. Early in the second half, Morata scores again, and Simeone's army fended off the Dutch side to take a 3-2 win. In the other match, Celtic disappoint and Lazio complete a comeback victory. In match day 3, we saw Feyenoord host Lazio. It was here that Lazio's momentum was damaged as Jimenez led Feyenoord to a comfortable 3-1 victory. In the other match, Celtic faced Atletico Madrid. Both sides walked away with 1 point each. Next in matchday 4 was the return leg of Lazio versus Feyenoord. Ciro Immobile dribbled past the keeper and tucked in the only goal of the match as Lazio get back on track. So Lazio are doing a lot better than I predicted. I also predicted Celtic finishing in 3rd though, and they're facing an in-form Atletico Madrid. I wonder how that match is going. Everything I said is aging like milk, isn't it? Matchday 5 came around and we open with Lazio versus Celtic. Despite the hosts getting a lot of good chances, neither side could make anything happen. But Sarri brought Immobile off the bench and the Italian veteran clutches up, giving Lazio a 2-0 win within 3 minutes. While this was happening, Feyenoord scored 3 goals in the Atletico match but ended up losing 3-1. I think you're supposed to score past Oblak, not your own keeper. With these results, Atletico Madrid and Lazio qualify for the knockout stage. Feyenoord are into the Europa League and Celtic are eliminated. With this in mind, when matchday 6 came around, Atletico took an easy 2-0 victory over Lazio and secured first place in the group, while Celtic get a consolation victory over Feyenoord. Group F started with a 0-0 draw between Milan and Newcastle. The scoreline absolutely did not reflect the match itself. The Rossoneri peppered the Newcastle goal throughout, but the Magpies' defense valiantly held off their tenacious opponents. In another touching moment, Sandro Tonali was given a warm reception at the San Siro by the AC Milan fans, applauding an opponent who had been forced to leave their club against his best wishes. Into the other match of matchday 1, PSG faced off against Borussia Dortmund. The Parisians went on to secure a 2-0 win through Mbappe and Hakimi and topped the group of death. In matchday 2, Milan suffered yet another 0-0 draw against Borussia Dortmund, while Newcastle hosted PSG at St. James Park. The underdogs showed no mercy to the Parisians as the visitors got demolished 4-1. That's right, folks. Newcastle won 4-1 against PSG despite only getting 26% possession and 68% pass accuracy. Matchday 3 came, and Newcastle unfortunately couldn't carry their form into this week as they were narrowly bested by Dortmund. Meanwhile, PSG, having been humiliated by Newcastle recently, completely demolished AC Milan. By the way, Milan are still winless in this group stage so far. Newcastle look like they might have a chance of going through, while Dortmund and possibly PSG are favorites to progress. Then it was matchday 4, which started with Dortmund securing a 2-0 win over Newcastle United. Milan versus PSG was next up, but considering who was guarding the sticks for the French champions, the reaction was guaranteed to be extremely hostile. PSG keeper Gianluigi Donnarumma left his boyhood club AC Milan all the way back in 2021 for the French Giants on a free transfer. Despite being one of the world's best young keepers and being offered an expensive contract at the time. As a result, many Milan fans have shown hostility towards their former goalkeeper, denouncing him as a mercenary who plays for whoever offers the most money. This sentiment did not die down at all during the match, as the local ultras were throwing fake banknotes onto the pitch labeled Dollaruma, with Donnarumma's face painted on the portrait and labeled Mercenario, como senza onore, which translates to mercenary man without honor. Anyways, onto the match. Former Interstar Milan Skriniar gave PSG an early lead, but just 3 minutes later, Giroud gets a chance, his shot is saved, but the rebound is scored by Rafael Leao off a really weird bicycle kick. Then, in the 50th minute, Giroud leaps above Skriniar to take the lead for Milan. Both sides continued bombarding forward, but in the end, Milan hold on to their comeback to add another twist to the group of death. Now for Matchday 5. Borussia Dortmund faced off against AC Milan at the San Siro, and the Yellow Walls' bottling genes kicked in as they conceded a penalty just 5 minutes into the match. Thankfully, it was saved, and in the 10th minute, Marco Reus teaches Giroud how to score a spot kick. Nigerian winger Chukwueze scores an equalizer, but in the second half, Dortmund grabbed the game by the scruff of its neck and win convincingly. Meanwhile, in the other match, Newcastle paid a visit to the Parc des Princes. It looked like another shock was on the cards as Donnarumma produces a save, but puts the rebound right in front of Isak, who pounces on the opportunity. For the rest of the match, PSG peppered the Magpies' goal, but couldn't produce anything. Finally, right at the death, Dembele has the ball and fires off a cross, but the ball bounces off Livramento's chest and onto his arm in the box, with VAR awarding a controversial penalty to the Parisians. This penalty call was especially bad because a similar penalty for Bayern that I mentioned at the start wasn't given for the same reason, and by the way, that match was only 1 day later, making this call especially controversial. So controversial, in fact, that UEFA dropped the VAR official for the next game. Mbappe steps up and completes a 98th minute robbery of Newcastle United. These results mean Borussia Dortmund are already qualified, while PSG fought their way into second place. Meanwhile, AC Milan and Newcastle are in real danger of not qualifying for the knockouts. PSG's last game is against Borussia Dortmund, and they need to win to guarantee qualification. If they draw, they need Newcastle to not win against Milan, and if they lose, they need to hope Milan versus Newcastle ends in a draw. Finally, in the last match day, the group of death completely spiraled into chaos, with both matches kicking off at the same time. In the 33rd minute, Joe Linton gave Newcastle the lead against AC Milan. This goal means Newcastle will finish in second and PSG will be relegated to the Europa League. It gets even worse for the Parisians because in a must-win situation for them, Dortmund take the lead in the 51st minute through Karim Adeyemi. Desperate to make something happen, Zaire Emery gives PSG an equalizer, but with Newcastle still leading, the table hasn't changed in any meaningful way. Thankfully for the Paris club, Milan's Christian Pulisic bags an equalizer in the 59th minute, meaning at least for the moment PSG are safely into the round of 16. Then, in true clutch fashion, Chukwueze scores in the 84th minute to take the lead for Milan. With the Magpies now trailing, PSG continued to bombard forward, but Dortmund ultimately held them at bay. Both matches end and PSG finish in second place behind Dortmund. Milan are into the Europa League, and Newcastle carry on the tradition of clubs sponsored by Middle Eastern countries, disappointing in Europe.
This is football heritage.
Group G started off with a complete mismatch. Manchester City against Red Star Belgrade. The Etihad locals showed no mercy right off the bat as City pummeled the visitors' goal with shots. So overwhelming was this onslaught that Man City had over 20 shots in the first half alone, but somehow couldn't score. Red Star add an additional twist to the tale as they lead with their first shot all game. With City bamboozled, the world thought it would witness a shock result in the very first match. Unfortunately, even with Haaland missing in action, City still have too much quality as Alvarez and Rodri put the visitors to bed. City and Leipzig match each other with 3-1 wins, and they are tied on points and goal differential in the very first match day. In the second match day, Red Star Belgrade and Young Boys held each other to a 2-2 draw, while City and Leipzig square off. Phil Foden put the citizens in front in the 25th minute. Openda equalizes in the second half, but late goals by Alvarez and Daku give City another 3-1 win. Match day 3 kicked off with RB Leipzig taking yet another 3-1 win over Red Star Belgrade. And what was the scoreline in the other match? 3-1. I feel like something fishy's happening here. Match day 4 came, and we finally break the streak of 3-1 wins, with Leipzig taking a more narrow 2-1 win over Red Star Belgrade. Man City also end their streak of 3-1 wins with a victory over Young Boys. City and Leipzig on top. What a surprise. With match day 5, Young Boys finally end their winless streak with a 2-0 win over Red Star Belgrade, while City hosted Leipzig at the Etihad. It looked like an upset was on the cards as Openda scores twice to give Leipzig a 2-0 lead going into halftime. City switch on in the second half as Haaland pulls one back in the 54th minute. The equalizer comes from Foden in the 70th minute, and Alvarez completes the comeback in the 87th minute. Leipzig lose. Serves you right for not following the script. They're still qualified though. In matchday 6, we saw RB Leipzig take a 2-1 win over Young Boys, where every goal was scored within 5 minutes. Meanwhile, City, oh what's the point? You already know they won. The script was written, it's being followed by everyone, City will win every Champions League until 2050. Moving on. These results mean Man City advances group winners with a perfect 6 wins out of 6. RB Leipzig advance as runners-up. Young Boys are relegated to the Europa League, and Red Star Belgrade are eliminated. Group H. I finally get to talk about Barcelona. And the Coolers showed no mercy, starting off their campaign with a complete massacre of Antwerp. This group is playing out like I expected so far, as Porto win 3-1 over Shakhtar Donetsk. In matchday 2, Antwerp nearly caused a shock by taking a 2-0 lead over Shakhtar Donetsk, but end up throwing the lead away in the second half and losing 3-2. Meanwhile, Barcelona seem to be carrying their shaky league form over to the Champions League as we take a narrow 1-0 win over Porto, with Gavi also being sent off. Then in matchday 3, Porto demolish Antwerp with an Evanilson hat-trick, while Barcelona take a 2-1 win over Shakhtar. As things stand, Barcelona only need to win the next match against Shakhtar Donetsk and they'll qualify for the knockouts. Matchday 4, baby! Barcelona just need to win this game against Shakhtar and they'll be in the knockouts. Finally, after 2 long years, we're going to be in the knockouts again. At last. Our form might be shaky, but I have full belief. We can do this. We can win. Porto take a routine win over Antwerp, and Barcelona do a routine bottle job against Shakhtar. Okay, we just have to win our next match against Porto, and we'll be fine. Here's matchday 5. Barcelona hosted Porto at home, and as I said before, all we need to do is win this match, and we'll be confirmed into the knockouts, but there were a few things working against us. Gavi was confirmed to be out for the rest of the season 8 days before the match, and Barca's form in the league was more unconvincing than ever. So, how did the Coolers start in this match? Take a guess. Lucky for us, the Joao team came in clutch and Barcelona secured a 2-1 win over Porto. With that win, Barcelona secured their spot in the round of 16 for the first time since 2021. For the first time since Messi left. I was so ecstatic at finally making the knockouts. I was literally asking a friend if Barcelona were really, undeniably, 100% confirmed qualified. Look, the last 2 years have been rough. Shakhtar also win against Antwerp, and these results mean Porto and Shakhtar are contending for the last knockout spot. Porto only need to draw and they're through, but if Shakhtar win, they'll qualify instead. Finally, we're at the last match day. Porto win an 8-goal thriller over Shakhtar Donetsk to secure second place in the group, while Barcelona pay a visit to already eliminated Antwerp. I know Barca are mostly playing their young players, but Antwerp's defense has been more non-existent than affordable housing in Vancouver, so I'm sure we can still take a victory. No worries though, because even though Lewandowski pulled a vanishing act, Ferran Torres begs an equalizer. And with this moment, Barca will Barcelona push on and on for an equalizer, but the Belgian club's defense does their job properly for once. But in stoppage time, Gundogan summons his City clutch powers with his free kick finding Geek. The young midfielder begs a late equalizer, and Barcelona are back. Barcelona pull another bottle job and lose 3-2 to the team that conceded the most goals throughout the entire Champions League season. But with Porto taking the win against Shakhtar, the head-to-head tiebreaker means Barca still go to the knockouts in first place. That's right, Bayern, you can't torment us this time. But man, I am so glad I got that massive video out of the way. 6,000 words. I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll post my predictions sometime in February. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and I'll see you later.